Well, folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to another drive time match reaction. PSG 2, Liverpool nil, PSG 2, 4-0 on aggregate. I don't think the score, once that goal went in last night from Dembele, I think that was it, you know what I mean? The second goal was really an irrelevance really at that stage. The heart, the oxygen, everything in the stadium had been sucked right out of it with that Dembele goal. And the truth is, looking at it last night, you know, we all hoped and prayed and held on to that little bit of hope that maybe we might be able to go do something, maybe this team might be able to show up and stuff like that. And there's no doubt last night, you know, they brought a bit of energy and they huffed and they puffed, but the reality was they were never going to blow the house down. The reality was that the quality now isn't in this side to do that, you know. And while we looked at the Fulham game and we thought, who knows, maybe, you know, the reality is that, you know, Fulham aren't PSG. Very simply, PSG have quality all around the pitch. They showed it last night. Even in that second half, you know, when we were really pressed up against them, and we had them boxed in and stuff like that, we still were just void of ideas up front. There's a lack of confidence there. There's a lack of quality. The reality is that this team is nowhere near the quality of that team that came back against Barcelona at that time. Both what we have on the pitch and also what we have in the manager's dugout. So from a coaching point of view and from a player's point of view, we lacked key things last night that would try and get us over the line. Now, having said that, you know, if we had got the penalty and scored that might have put a different slant on the game. Maybe we might have been able to do something. Maybe PSG would have got a little bit rattled, who knows. But the reality is, and I suppose one of the positive things that maybe can come out of the game last night is the fact that we now know that we're going to need a massive summer again. That we now know that the drop off in some of these players is absolutely massive. And, you know, the confirmation last night was, the reality is that, like, Ryan Gravenberch really isn't that player, you know. And I mean, we have to talk about the gaffer as well, and we have to talk about the starting lineup choices and all that kind of stuff, and the fundamental mistakes that he made in both legs in terms of the lineups and who he picked and stuff like that and all, you know. And like, so, sometimes when things aren't going your way, and sometimes when matches are getting away from you and you dig deep, that's when you see managers earning their money. Most managers of top clubs go along all year long, and they're winning games, they're progressing, they're going through cups, they're doing all that kind of thing. But it's in those key moments in games at the business end of the season where you see why managers get paid the money that they get paid. And the reality is that this manager probably is not good enough. And we've known that for a long, long time. And you hear people saying, oh, maybe he needs another year, everything that went on, blah, 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 blah. But the reality last night, you know, whatever we feel about Mo Salah, whatever we feel about his drop-off, and I mean, we seen it last night as well on the pitch. He came on and literally doesn't really do it. Looks very, very busy just running into people. His touch is shocking. And the reality is that Mo Salah couldn't be any further from the Mo Salah that one we seen last year and that we've seen over the last 8 or 9 years. It's just not the same guy, and the drop-off has just been right off the edge of a cliff. You know, and it's the reality is we can now reflect on those two games, and we know now there's a lot of work to be done in this squad, and probably not necessarily by this manager. I think this squad needs a different set of eyes on it, a different kind of impetus, a different approach, and I just don't think the current setup is conducive to get people playing in a certain way. This manager sticks with a framework that just basically is foreign to these players, and because these players don't like it, they just go fuck it, and they're not interested, you know. I don't think the players would be happy at all with Mo Salah being sat down. Regardless of his form, I think if you put him on the pitch, I think he gets other teams thinking in a different way, because he brings a certain kind of threat that needs to be marshalled. Regardless of his form, and you see him last night, I mean, he's not good last night, let's be honest here. Not good. But you don't know that going onto the pitch. And if you're trying to overcome a PSG side that's 2-0 up from a first leg in Paris, you know, you've really got to, you know, those guys will be rubbing their hands not seeing Mo Salah in the starting lineup and seeing someone like Alexander Isak, who hasn't kicked the ball in 3-4 months or whatever it is, comes on, you know, does virtually nothing. You know what I mean? Literally didn't even kick a ball. We lost Ekitike to the injury now. I don't know the extent of that. I haven't heard anything this morning. But it looks very serious, and he could be gone for the season. And this could have huge impacts now in terms of, you know, that top 5 run in now. You know, we have a big game coming up now we have to focus on now. We're out of everything. So now we just have to focus on securing a top 5 spot. And that manager now, or those players, have to come together over the next 3-4 days to put their best foot forward now and try and get a real big result against Everton and get the job done and create that gap between ourselves and Chelsea and whoever else it is. And, you know, Chelsea are playing Man United now at the weekend, so that in normal circumstances will present us with an opportunity to either close the gap on United or extend the gap against Chelsea. But we know we'll go into that Merseyside derby. It's in the Hill Dickinson, and we know that we'll just cough it up, because what they'll do is they'll come out and they'll bully us, and we'll just accept it, and they get at us, and we don't fancy that. Konate doesn't fancy that. Van Dijk doesn't fancy that. Wirtz certainly doesn't fancy that. Let us know your thoughts on Florian Wirtz, folks. I don't know. I look at it there last night, and he just seems like one of these guys that's just fucking super busy doing fuck all, like, you know, that kind of way. He's just one of those, like, and I don't want to check out on him yet, because I know it's been a difficult season for everyone trying to bet in and stuff like that now. But this guy, and you see it with Ekitike as well at times, just this fucking showboating, back flicks, bollocky kind of shit, like, you know what I mean? At a time where we really need to be strong in possession, you know, and we need to make things happen, and we were behind by 2 goals, and these lads are doing fucking back flicks and step overs and shit, and I'm just there going, lads, you aren't fucking reading the room here. The room is to get the ball on the deck, punch it between the fucking lines, play players through and try and create opportunities. We're 2 goals down here. We're not here. This isn't a pre-season fucking show-off session, you know what I mean? You're not doing trials here at Liverpool trying to convince Liverpool to fucking sign you. You're Liverpool players. And it was just, I see a lot of that going on, and I fucking hate it. Now, I don't want to take like that kind of skill set out of young players and stuff like that as well, but sometimes you gotta read the room and go, listen, instead of just constantly running into this fucking wall of players, why don't I just put my foot on the ball, look up and have a quick look around and see what's available to me? And sometimes playing that simple 2, 3, 4 yard pass to recycle again to create an opportunity, that's okay. You know what I mean? We don't all have to try and be Pele every fucking day, every fucking pass. You know what I mean? And I just think there's a naivety to both Wirtz and to Ekitike, and a lack of understanding sometimes of reading the room and what needs to be done. And again, it just coughs up possession. How many times did we see Florian Wirtz just bursting into a group of PSG players, lose the ball, shit touch? Ekitike was the same, just all over the place when he was on the pitch. You know, we didn't really create a whole lot. We never in truth really looked like scoring last night. Yes, we had them on the rack at one stage, we had them under pressure, we had them backed off. They still look really, really comfortable. Really, really comfortable. And they would have been boiled by the lineup, you know. We heard the manager in the press conference, the pre-match press conference, talking about Rio and that it would be his time and all that. Guys on the bench. Salah on the bench. These are guys who had good games at the weekend against Fulham, who now find themselves on the fucking bench. So you go out and you perform against Fulham, And listen, this was a poor Fulham side as well at the weekend, let's get that straight. But you go out and you perform against Fulham, and then your reward for that is you get benched, you know. And you know, the last Champions League game for Liverpool, for Mo Salah, and the guy is sitting on the bench. And I just felt there was a deepening kind of sadness last night about the whole thing, you know what I mean? And it was a poignant moment when the camera went to him. You'll Never Walk Alone was resonating around the stadium. The fans were electric last night. You couldn't fault the fans to a man. Very disappointed in some of the French fans breaking the silence for the Hillsborough disaster. And of course our thoughts and prayers go out to all the families today and everyone that's associated with that. This is always a very difficult month and a very difficult day for Liverpool Football Club. And we seen it last night, even going to Kenny Dalglish in the stand and stuff like that, and we know what that period in time did to that man and stuff like that. And I mean, he's forever our guy, isn't he, King Kenny? But that guy, just what he did in that period is just outstanding. Forget about a football manager, a footballer, what he did for the club, but just as a fucking decent human being, you know what I mean? We love Kenny so much, you know. So it was a tough night, you know. And it was like, it just literally only in that sort of 15-20 minute period of the second half really felt like we were up for it in the Champions League night. Maybe if we got a goal or something went in or something happened. I mean, our shooting was absolutely pony. Like, you look at Ryan Gravenberch, like, can't even hit the target, like, you know what I mean? Like, the only time he really hit the target was from fucking really acute angles, which is bread and butter for the keeper. Then you see them going down the other end, you know, and a little step and a switch, and he just moves the ball into position to create the space, slots it into the bottom corner, and that's the difference. And the reality is, that's when the reality sets in, that this team actually doesn't possess the quality that it needs to compete at the highest level. We are just way off it, you know what I mean? Like, you see Konate sliding in and making that good tackle, that block, and he's jumping up and he's fucking fist pumping the air and all this kind of thing, and I'm looking at it going, mate, that's bread and butter for you. That's the minimum we expect from a top level defender at this level. That's what we expect from you, you know what I mean? And it was just to see them celebrating. They've now gotten to a stage now where they feel a need to celebrate doing the basic expectation of their job. And I think they've somewhere along this season, I think a lot of these players have forgotten about the badge and the crest that sits on their heart each week. And they've become very easy to play against. They've become very fucking soft. And they've just gone out week in, week out this season, you know, feeling sorry for themselves, pulling that Balotelli card, why always me, you know what I mean? Like a ref's decision maybe doesn't go their way, or something doesn't go their way, and they're just fucking, they're there, and it's just, it's both laughable and both shocking to see what has happened, to be honest. It's just the strangest thing, and it's weird from a fan's point of view. It's very, very strange, because we just cannot understand what has gone on. You know, we've literally no idea of what's happened. We really don't know what has been the case. And it's a weird one. It's a very, very strange and a very, very weird one to try and comprehend. You know, when you've seen this team play so well, and listen, this goes back literally, you know, to the Carabao Cup final and the PSG game last year. That's when the drop off begun. You know, and it's just for us as Liverpool fans this season, it's just we just can't comprehend what's happened. We had a title winning side that walked the title last year. We went out and we spent £500 million to regress. And maybe it's a combination of too many changes. It's a combination of, you know, poor coaching. And I think somewhere along the line this season, like, Slot just lost his way, and he just started reacting to things, and instead of there being a plan and a tactic and a formation and all, we abandoned everything. You abandon everything that brings you to the dance, everything that puts you on the throne, and then you fall off the throne, you slip away, and you're looking around and you're trying to figure out what it is. You got eyes on the manager, you got eyes on the tragedy of Diogo Jota, you got eyes on the players, you got a mentality in the players, they don't like to see their buddies being sat down, and you've had this kind of, I feel, this internal war between the players and the club, like a player power kind of situation, where the players nearly wanted to pick the team and pick the tactics, and that Slot kind of was at war with them this season and trying to do what he wanted to do, and wanting to play a certain formation. It was fairly evident it didn't work, or it was fairly evident that we didn't have the tools in the toolbox to do that job that he wanted done. We were basically plumbers showing up to do an electrical job most of the time this year. And there's times it worked. There's times where he found a different way to play, and we got results against Atletico, and we got results against Real, and we put in decent results. But then there's times when it came unstuck. So many times, and it outweighed. You just look at that PSV game. That was, you look at PSG last week. It just comes unstuck, you know what I mean? And you're looking to the bench. No disrespect, love Joe Gomez, but you're looking to the bench, and in 2026 against PSG, where you're 2-0 down, and you're in the home leg, last chance saloon, and your option on the bench is Joe Gomez. That's a sad indictment of the club, the ownership. Hughes, Edwards, Slot, the whole lot. Like, if your option on the bench is Joe Gomez, and we seen he came on and a header there at the near post, which should be a bread and butter header to a guy of his size, and again shits the bed, and you can see why he's never scored for us in 11 years at the club or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And there's just an acceptance of this rolling on. But I think last night defined something for us. I think, if anything, if you want to look at some sort of blue sky within the clouds of this season, it's very clear last night that there's players that are not good enough at this level. And these are players who probably value themselves very highly. And these are players who probably think they're not going to tolerate being sat down on our bench if we do happen to go and have another summer and bring in players that we're linked with and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I just think the sooner the better. Try and secure this top 5 in whatever way we're going to do it. Secure it, and then change needs to happen. We need to put a plan in place, and we need to move on from this season and just put it behind us. And the sad thing is, again, it's another shit season when legends are leaving the club. Guys who have given us so much. Guys who have just put in our minds and in our hearts memories that we will carry forever. And, we're going to send them off again in a kind of a shitty way with nothing really to show for it. And that kind of hurts a little bit, you know what I mean? We seen it when Klopp went, we seen it when Bobby went, and Mane went, and all these players and stuff. You kind of send them off, and you kind of there's a huge disappointment in the way it happens. You know what I mean? And to see Mo Salah on the pitch, and to see his reaction even when that first goal went in, the third goal on aggregate from Dembele, and just to see him sit there. And the reality of it sinking into his heart that it's actually over. It's actually over. The season has ran out. And that the drop-off has been sensational. And listen, it's on him too. You know what I mean? It's his reality as well. It's his reality. It's our shared reality. It's the club's reality. You know what I mean? He hasn't been anywhere near. We should have known that he could never replicate the season of last season, that it was just a generational season really for him. We know that he's had great seasons and he's posted such sensational numbers and stuff like that, but last season he did truly at times carry the team on his back, and this season he just couldn't do it for whatever reason. He just couldn't do it. I suppose this is more a conversation, just a reset of where we're actually at as a club now, as opposed to dissecting down the PSG game, because in reality we knew that in order to have any chance at all, we would have to make change during the international break to try and get some sort of a bump. And the reality is this club didn't have the bollocks or the wherewithal to do it. That this club is coming out and feeding journalists saying that they're going to stick with Slot, that there was mitigating factors this year and all. Well, there's no mitigating factor last night to play an unfit Isaac and sit a Mo Salah down. That's not mitigating factors. You know what I mean? That's just, for me, fuckery. Like, why would you sit a Mo Salah down in Paris, play him against Fulham, and sit him down against PSG at home again? I mean, that's not a mitigating factor. That's just fuckery. Let's be honest here as fans, you know. And it's just sad to see him and Robbo leaving. And I think there'll be more. I think you're going to see a lot of players at the end of this season looking for the exit door. That they need a massive change of scenery, because they're carrying the baggage of Diogo, they're carrying the baggage of a poor season, and they're struggling to adjust to the end of the Jurgen Klopp era. And Slot kind of is a different kind of guy. I'd say he's a harsher kind of guy. I'd say he's a proper taskmaster, and he's not a guy who's going to cajole you in any way. You're gonna have to work very, very hard under an Arne Slot to gain his respect, and in some teams that works. But the reality in this team here, this is a team that's been cuddled and romanced for years. This is a team that's always needed an arm around the shoulder. This is a team that craves praise at times for the bare minimum, and the reality is that's not in his psyche. So there's a kind of a coming together that doesn't sit and doesn't mesh and doesn't fit right. And you're not going to, we heard all these guys on Instagram over the last number of days, we're going to run through walls, we're up for this is it, this is our moment. We seeing players say that and do that and all, and the reality is they show up last night, they bring a little bit more energy because the crowd demands it, but the mentality is as weak as gnat's piss, and they just don't have it in them. They don't have it in them to see a thing out. And the concern now is, are they going to have it in them after this to see this top 5 out? Do they even care? Are they thinking about the exit door? Because let's be honest, no one can come on here and tell me that McAllister isn't looking for an exit door. That guy is not playing at all. Gravenberch, not happy at all. Don't be surprised if Dom as well is looking for an exit. You know, we're re-signing Kanate. You know, what message at times does that send? You know what I mean? So I don't know, it's just, for me, it's just, you look at Virgil, you know, with Robbo going and stuff like that and all, you got Robbo going, you're pulling out the heart and the enjoyment and the reason that you get out of bed to go and enjoy your training and be a team and be together. A lot of that's getting pulled out now. So this is going to be a very different looking side next season, you know what I mean? You've had the drop off in Allison, you know, with the injuries and stuff like that and all. So are we going to see less of him and more of Marmadashvili? If we are, just use reservations over that, because to be honest, his distribution is questionable. His confidence and ability on the ball in key moments, you know, where he just hoofs ball or kicks ball out of play when he's a better option. And again, it just puts us in more difficulty. You seen it last night, the ball he kicked out and then falls, you know, quick throw in, he's racing to get back, You know, plenty of balls last night he could have caught, but he was punching. Signals to me a keeper that's void of confidence. And I just think there's huge issues all around the park. I don't think there's any position in this team at the moment that us as fans don't have questions over, and that's a real problem. There's no more I can say on it, folks. We're out of the Champions League. It's not unexpected. We crashed out of the FA Cup. It's not unexpected. We were hoping for a change in manager over the international break. They hadn't got the balls to do it. The conflicting reports coming out of the club are just confusing us as hell as fans. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And of course, always justice for the 97, and our thoughts are always with them. Never forget. Cheers, folks.